TV kitchen for another riveting episode of what's really going on with your two hosts, Jim Hanna and Julie Nardone. We are neighbors on Elliott Street, and we are here to help you, the taxpayers, get the information you need to make informed decisions. Jim, before we talk about today's topics, do you have anything to say?
Well, today's topics are probably plenty for us to talk about as we try to explain again to the town that we need your help.
We need your help. Okay, so we're going to talk about civic ignorance. Then we're going to talk about the rail transit district overage, a water sewer enterprise fund audit, capital projects, and then we're going to briefly talk about schools and anything else we have time for. Okay, so Jim and I had the great experience of listening to former Supreme Court Justice David Souter give a talk. It was in New Hampshire, and he took questions from the audience, and one of them was from a woman who was concerned about the lack of civics in the schools. And he gave just the most breathtaking talk, and you can Google it yourself. You can find it on YouTube. David Souter, Civic Ignorance. And he just said that what he feels is the biggest problem in America, isn't terrorism or meltdowns of the stock market. He said it is civic ignorance. And he said somewhere in the 1970s, the schools stopped teaching civics. Jim, did you take civics classes?
Yes, I did.
Jim can tell us about his
Ashland had
experience.
civics classes.
How many did you take, Jim? Do you remember?
Pardon me?
Do you remember how many you took?
How many
Classes you took on civics?
All of them.
With Herb?
Oh yeah, right straight through from freshman to senior.
There was 4.
Yes.
That is amazing.
They brought you in at the lower base in the first year. They expanded it to other wings of it, and then they finished it off with the general court and how it deals with the proletariat.
Oh my God, that's
It was
fantastic.
when you left school, you knew what the government looked like.
Mm-hmm.
Today, I think if I asked any of my kids, they wouldn't know. I've never asked them. Perhaps I shouldn't.
I think you should ask him for the next show, because Justice Souter said that something like 2/3 of the American population does not know that there are 3 branches to the government, and that others thought the Supreme Court was a committee of Congress.
Yes.
And he said what has made it worse is the No Child Left Behind Act. I think that was, when was that?
That was Hillary's
Bush. I think it was one of them.
walk call.
Yeah, and now everything is teaching to the test. And if it's not on the test, nobody gets taught. And we're going to talk about this because it's a serious problem in Ashland.
Well, it isn't just the kids; it's the kids. That civics has lost itself in the smokescure of education, and now the interest in education is to the most current development in the world as to what's important and what isn't. And democracy doesn't seem to be in that role, but it's how your government runs. Mm-hmm. And we are running a government in just our own town meeting that's not democratic whatsoever.
Absolutely not.
And it gets accepted by the majority. So we got some work to do because we're not finding out that the majority win. It's the selected majority that win.
Exactly. We're going to talk more about that. I just want to, Justice Souter had a couple of quotes that bear repeating. Jefferson, an ignorant people cannot remain a free people. Democracy cannot survive ignorance. And then Benjamin Franklin was asked in 1787 what kind of government the Constitution would give us if adopted. And he said, a republic if you can keep it. You can't keep it in ignorance. And some of the biggest problems are nobody knows who's responsible for what. Even in Ashland, I mean, I've been to meetings, I've seen people get up and you just go around in circles. You go to this person trying to get an answer, get someone to enforce anything. It's really sad because people don't understand how important it is if they want to continue to live in a democracy.
Well, if you look at your own town meeting, each time that a warrant item comes before, it isn't the selectmen who explain it, basically explain what the object is. It's somebody else. The selectmen just sit there. They're the major unit. In the democracy, they're number one. Yet they don't get involved in number one or number two. Finance committee is absolutely quiet. So the people in the audience don't know what they're talking about other than you ought to vote for it.
And we have, I haven't watched the Board of Selectmen meeting, but we had sent a request to have copies of the budget book because we've got this award-winning budget book, but the problem is none of the people see it. And it's quite thick, it's like 75 pages, like this. And I mean, most people, they cannot print that out on their home computer.
Well, Julie, that document you just run your finger through is 75 pages long. We asked that of Framingham to give us an example.
Well, actually, I had to send this, we sent this to Staples. Framingham gave us a PDF,
Okay.
and we sent it to Staples because,
Okay.
it's
Well,
just...
they gave us the information we needed, and we expanded it as far as that is concerned.
They did. Framingham has an awesome public information request process. You fill it out online, they email you back, and you get an exact date of when you'll be getting the stuff, if there's going to be a cost or anything.
well,
And
that's
they were
what we're- that's
exactly the day they said they'd get it, we got it. It was impressive. In Ashland, I just feel like we ask for stuff, they say they don't have it when it's something we asked for before.
Yeah.
Or you get it like 3 weeks later because someone had to get somebody's permission for a public information request. I mean, that makes no sense.
Well,
to me.
it wasn't, this thing that we're talking about is just it's like a disease running through the system itself. I had a nice chat with the town manager, and I said, we have a problem with the railroad crossing in the town of Ashland. And I says, their cars are bouncing all over the place to go from north to south to south to north. And I says, it's time for us to send some sort of notification to the railroad company that it has to be fixed. It's been going on that way for 2 years. I can hardly get my car bouncing over the tracks going from the town hall to Halston Hill.
You're saying physical.
Yeah, the whole car is moving and banging and bouncing.
Yeah.
Well, your undercarriage of your car it gets weakened each time that happens.
Yeah.
And who knows how many people are going to get their tires straightened out. That's the cost to the people.
There's also a physical cost because I fell last March, and when I had to go over those railroad tracks, I'm telling you, and even when my husband was driving, the pain from that bump was, I was screaming. I was screaming in my car because the pain was so bad. So, and I'm sure there's other people with
Well, if the town manager
bad backs, whatever.
If the town manager can't do anything about it, what do we have? Called the, I don't know.
Again, we go back to what David Souter was talking about.
Yeah.
Who is responsible and who is running the town? There's actually a lot of people walking around now saying to me, who is running the town? Because we don't know. I think it should be the Board of Selectmen.
Yes.
But I don't think that's what's happening. It's like one of the articles that was in the town charter. I just watched a fantastic clip with another show here, Policy Beast, with Roberta Suleman, the chair of the Charter Review Committee. And they said that they had wanted selectmen, finance, and school committee to not be on any other committees, so that they would just focus on what the task is in front of them. And the selectmen crossed out themselves in the school committee. And I honestly, maybe I'm wrong, but I've never really seen school committee members on. Maybe they are, but they seem to just really be focusing on the schools. You know, and sometimes I think they're on so many different committees now that the Board of Selectmen just falls by the wayside, which is...
That's the idea of the democracy being diminished, because the people who are responsible are also the voters. Mm-hmm. And if you're on a committee, you have to go with the vote of the committee. When you're a selectman, the committee goes before the selectmen to try and explain to them what we want to do, and the selectmen make the final decision, but not the temporary decision in the middle of the dealing with the facts of the situation. They shouldn't be there.
Yeah, see, to me, it's a conflict of interest. You're muddying the waters when you've got people on a committee, and then they turn around and they're in front of themselves. Yeah. And it's like...
Very good.
You know, I really think what we did in 2007 was
Julie, it's a mirror organization.
Yeah.
It looks back at itself.
A house of mirrors.
I like that. That's cool.
In 2007, we created this strong town manager position, and we've had a succession of different managers, and again, I said this before, it weakens the Board of Selectmen, it weakens the people. It makes absolutely no sense to me why we would want this in a democracy. But again, it didn't make it to
it doesn't make any sense.
It's on the cutting room floor for the town charter. It's just going to stay the way it is.
Yes.
And frankly, it just doesn't work right, because it allows, no one knows who's running the town, and it allows people to sit back and just be civically ignorant. Sure. And you may not think it's a problem, but it is. And the schools should really be, instead of creating shopping consumers who go out and buy stuff at the mall, they should be creating civic-minded residents who understand their role in their own government. Because you can look at all these other countries, North Korea and parts of Iran and other places where we're looked upon as being democratic, but we really aren't. We're like what do you call it? Like an empty democracy. And then people in Ashland who try and they try and enforce the little democracy we have. They just get besmirched, and I think it's a terrible thing. Anyone who says, "Please, can we follow this rule? Can we do that?" And they just get...
Well, you look at the charter. We need a slamming change in our charter. And if I were there in that charter committee, I would have said, we need to surround ourselves with a people group from each precinct.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And they would come to the meetings, and they would hear what's going on in our operations, and they would be the ones that the selectmen have to listen to as to how their precincts feel about issue A, B, and C. Yeah. And get a feel for it and make the approval themselves without the manager, the strong manager, making out how he runs his business, then demand that it gets run that way, comes out smelling like a rose, and we have failed in what we were going to do. Ownership belongs with the town, not the town manager.
Yeah, I'm very concerned because, and I speak to a lot of residents, and things, even the way we organize the warrant, we've got all these important projects, money projects. They bury them in these articles with like 15 other things, and they're more like approving the total number. And it's like, it's becoming worse, and every town meeting, it gets worse and worse with all this stuff being buried in the middle of these articles. And I think it's financial shame.
Well, that's
what's going on.
well, just to carry it further, it doesn't make any sense. We have invested, we've appropriated people's money to build the rail transit as an example.
Oh, the rail transit district.
Yeah.
With the grant, the
And-
$6 million grant.
Yeah. With a grant thrown in and $6 million to start, now God knows what's the end number, and we have no idea. They don't have a number that says right now we're at 47 million spent. We got $52 million.
Well, I think it's all spent. I think
Well,
the six
see,
is gone.
you can think all you want.
Yeah.
I'm
just guessing because nobody knows anything.
Yeah, we know now after squeezing it out of the selectmen that there's $1 million in there somewhere that hasn't been used yet because we allowed to pass it on for a later date.
Well, actually, the minutes, there were the Board of Selectmen minutes from the November meeting that was untelevised in a room somewhere. And it says the project looks like again, no one is informing the people where we are with any of these projects.
Yeah.
And they're all over the place. There's a project here and a project there and a project there and a project there and a project under the table. And they're just everywhere and they don't get finished and we have no updates. Nobody knows anything. But it said in those minutes that Jim read too, I think it said that the project was $1 million over and that they were going to take $400,000 out of the money that really, in my opinion, should have been put in the Water Sewer Enterprise Fund. Because when you build something like that, you have to buy into the system. You buy into the water, you buy into the sewer. But that money didn't go in there. It went into these other special accounts that seem to be overseen by the selectmen.
Well, we don't know. We really don't know where they went, but they didn't go where they were supposed to go.
Well, they approved $400,000.
Yeah, but they didn't say where the money was and where it was going and where it was coming from.
Okay, I could be wrong. I think I asked, and I was told, or yes, I'm pretty sure I asked, and I was told that these special accounts, and which brings us to another topic. Okay, the water and sewer enterprise funds. And we have like the second highest sewer cost, and we have all kinds of statistics. And this is actually what we asked Framingham for. And people, every time the bill comes out, people on Facebook, someone posts something and said, "What is up with these bills?" And then everybody writes all this stuff. They're all freaked out and everything. And then so oh my God, it must be a year and a half now, 2 years now. We spoke to the state's Department of Revenue, Local Services, and they are willing to come out here and do a free water and sewer enterprise fund audit. Free.
Free.
F-R-E-E. Free. And we have asked the selectmen, once the board, once the chair, twice, just to get on the agenda to see about having this done. And we're basically ignored. And I mean, I think that sends a strong message to me and maybe the rest of you. Oh, Jim, I don't know what you think.
Well,
when you can't get a citizen's concern on the agenda for something that will be free and will help the people of this town understand how our sewer rates, the bottom rung is now up to $11.85. The top is $17.78. With talk at a Board of Selectmen meeting about a month ago, 2 months ago, about another increase. Jim, before I continue on with that, do you have anything you want to interject?
What's that?
Do you want to interject anything about this?
Oh, well, as far as the
Water sewer
enterprise fund, it's something that is too close to the general fund. That no one knows whether monies get shifted into the general fund from the enterprise fund or shifted out of it for a temporary use and maybe put back or not. There's a question in there all the time about doing that. The state says you don't do it unless you have it totally papered, so you know why it did, who made the change, and then who shifted back. We don't have any of that information. We tried to get it from the enterprise fund people, and the answer was it never came. But it's our money, and as long as people in the town sit in their seats and twiddle their thumbs, they're going to be the ones that are going to get their way and pay more.
Yeah, so the people understand, and this goes back to civic ignorance. Apparently, the people of Ashland have not reached what Malcolm Gladwell called the tipping point. There is a point that you get to where it goes over the other side, and that is when people will complain. And I don't know what it's going to be. Is it going to be 13, 14? Because I want to talk about...
well, let's talk just for a second, if you don't mind, on the
okay.
end of this.
Oh, I'm still talking about it.
I ran into a situation just a week ago where we had a 3 or 4 day rainfall, and we hit about 3.5 to 4 inches of rain. And the water was pouring into the Ashland and Hopkinton Reservoir, far greater than it has in years, because they've cut the trees down on phase 2. And that whole hill that faces down on the reservoir is pretty clean of trees.
You mean Legacy Farms?
Legacy
Farms in Hopkinton.
The water came right down, and it poured into the lake, and our little spill water, the only one that runs the whole dam, went from 5 feet down to up to over 10 feet above the water. And the value is someone upstairs who runs this program for the state will say Ashland is exceeding the water fillage in the reservoir. It isn't the case of doing anything to your water you're drinking, but the dam may rupture itself or be in a safety zone, and they're going to shut the water down.
Which brings us to the point.
Hello?
Everyone kept...
Well, I brought it to the attention to those who should listen to it. They were very interested in talking about it, and we're going to do something about it. And I said, well, thanks, let me know when you do. And I just did it as a citizen, just went there and said, listen, there's a problem up here, because you can't run the well more than 5 feet above the natural base. Because if you do it for a long period of time, it's going to put a pressure on the dam itself, and they may have to close you down, close the surface water down. But then if they let it go too far, they're going to shut the wells off. If they have to go deeper in order to see if there's been any damage done on the wall, they will shut our water off.
Well, I mean, this is interesting too. Jim had to drive around trying to figure out who's responsible. We keep coming back to that central question. Who's responsible? Who can take care of this problem? Because that's what David Souter talked about too. He said, if we don't know who can solve the problem, someone rushes in and says, I can solve your problem. And everyone says, okay. And that's when you end up with a dictatorship.
Yeah.
So,
That's
again,
an open question that I'm going to get an answer to, because I went directly to the one who says, I'll take care of it.
Good.
In other words, he knew his responsibility.
Good. Okay, so back to this water sewer, because this is interesting. So I was, in 2008, 9, and 10, I was on the water and sewer, like a educational committee.
Yeah.
And we were supposed to work with the people to conserve water. But one thing that came up very early in our discussion was the money we paid to Framingham, which at that time was about 900,000, somewhere around 9, maybe, around 9. And, it was just always there. And that was in 2003-ish, when I lived here, 2002, 2003, we were originally paying Framingham something like $6,000 to use all their pipes.
$6,500 a year.
Well, someone in Framingham woke up and said, whoa, wait a minute, we're paying all this money to the MWRA and you're not paying your fair share. So this went back and forth and all of that, and it ended up being this about $900,000 payment, maybe a little more, 930. It just bounced around a little. And so more recently, we asked for this is all the water and sewer enterprise bills that come to Ashland from Framingham from 2006-ish to the current year. And it was interesting because I had no idea, but 2007, 8, 9, 10, and 11, we had 5 $200,000 payments, and it cited some kind of a Middlesex court case. I don't know. I tried to look for it. I didn't find it. But
Well, that was the impact of the
Jim thinks again. We don't
Arnold
know for
Baker
sure.
and the DPW chairman were very good friends, and they were on the state.
When was this?
This was probably
Okay, we have 5 minutes.
I don't know, mid '80s perhaps. And they were both very powerful people on the state.
Yeah.
And they were, when they were deciding where the piping was going to be, it stopped at Framingham. So Ashland had to tie in, and he and Arnold made a deal that Ashland was only a line away from. They were bringing the pipes up to like anywhere around the edge of Ashland. So all Ashland had to do was bring a little pipe over there and plug onto it, which they did, and they did that for 25 years. And then all of a sudden, when the deal became each town had to pay the MWRA, come to find out, the other towns were mad because Ashland wasn't paying anything except $6. In Holliston, or where they wanted to, or Natick or Framingham, those that didn't had to tie in at a very expensive price. So they finally challenged Ashland and Framingham, and Ashland had to subside to a new bill. And they came up with the bill. They negotiated it themselves. Then they paid it back to Framingham over a 5-year period.
And what's interesting is, so we were paying about 9, say 24.
Yeah.
It bounced around a little, 859. Then when we paid off the $200,000 that we were paying for 5 years, it went down. It went down $300,000 one year. Then the next year it went back up maybe 100, and then it bounced around a little. And then this year it was back up to like around the 950. But what's interesting is even though it went down in 2 or 3 years, our sewer rates continued to climb. And we have 2 minutes here. And I just want to say, in like 2002, it was like $4.20. The lowest tier was $4.25 per 100 cubic feet. Then after we started paying, it went up to $6.66, then almost $8, almost $9. In 2011, it was close to 11. Now it's close to 12. And I guess my question is, if it went down, why didn't ours go down? And this is a dramatic increase. It's literally almost double what it was when we got the first payment that we were supposed to pay, $900,000 a year. So, and now they're saying because it went up to where it actually was before, we have to have another increase. And I mean, this is why we're interested in this water sewer audit, because
Yes.
it's very confusing, and I think that people have a right to understand why is this going up so dramatically.
Well, as you and I think, the fact that it's money running all over the place, all you got to do is add a couple gallons to it. And when they're in the need of a project, they go into the enterprise fund for excess cash, hoping they can give it back sooner or later. But it doesn't always happen that way.
Yeah,
But it's not run the way it should be. The automatic change and shift should be known why it was there. Where the water come from? Water starts the sewer department. Every glass of water that goes into a house comes out 9 glasses more in price.
Okay, we need to wrap it up. Once again, we've come to the end of the show. We thank you for watching. If you Want to get in touch with us? Stop us in the supermarket at the park.